Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Dirks, and on behalf of ACRL and Choice, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Measuring Reach and Impact of Books and Chapters, which is sponsored by Springer Nature. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from ACRL and Choice that addresses new ideas, developments, and products of interest to the academic library community. Free to users, these structured 60-minute live presentations provide the opportunity for interactive discussions of important new issues and developments in academic librarianship by librarians, vendors, authors, and other interested stakeholders. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few features of the webinar software. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. Along the right-hand side, you will see a Q&A panel, which you can use to submit questions or comments. We will spend some time responding to your questions both during the program and at the end, so please feel free to submit these throughout. Please note, however, that these will only be visible to the panelists. You will see a separate box for technical questions. Please message the host privately with any technical difficulties you may be experiencing, so our production team can troubleshoot that issue with you privately. And finally, please note that today's program will be recorded and all registrants will receive follow-up instructions on how to access the archived version. Our speaker today is Martin Rollens, and here to introduce him is Michael DeSanto from Springer Nature Library Marketing.
Thanks, Mark, and again, welcome everyone. We're excited to have Martin Rollens, Head of Publishing Innovation at Springer Nature, here with us today to discuss performance metrics that track social and scholarly data surrounding a book post-publication. He will provide an overview of book metrics, an exciting new platform designed to track and report these metrics in one place. In addition, the potential impact of this book and chapter data will be explored in relation to supporting research services at academic libraries. At this point, we're ready to get started. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just pulling up my slides now. Here we are. Can you see my slides? Okay. I see. We can see my slides. Thanks. Thanks everybody for joining this webinar for me tonight. I'd like to tell you more about book metrics. And before I get to explaining the platform, I'd like to set the scene a little bit, that you know why we built this and where the idea was coming from. And it's already in the word a little bit, book metrics. And we all love metrics these days, which is sort of a measure for quality. And I think one of the places where this all started is with the rise of the mega journals. A couple of years ago, actually 10 years ago, I just noticed, PLOS ONE was started as one of the largest, one of the mega journals. And they published a lot of articles, and along came a lot of other mega journals. And all of these journals were interdisciplinary. There's a poll coming up, sorry. That actually meant that the impact factor had a very different meaning to the article that you were publishing. So, for example, if you published in PLOS ONE an article in Earth Science, where the average citation per article is around about 2, you'd had a really good journal, because the impact factor of the journal was twice the average citation of your discipline. Whereas if you published in neuroscience in the same journal, it had a different meaning, because you have 4.5 citations per article, whereas the impact factor is pretty much the same. So that sort of started the ball rolling around what the meaning is of the impact factor. At the same time, you could also ask the question, which article made a bigger impact? Is that an article published in a top-tier journal with 0 citation after 2 years, or virtually no citations, or an article in a low-impact journal? And I have two examples here. One is published in Nature with 3 citations after 2 years, and the other one in the bottom is in a low impact factor journal, impact factor 1.1, but it has over 400 citations. And so the question is, which of these articles made a bigger impact? Also, over the past 5 years, this dissemination of research has changed quite rapidly, which accommodated the increasing volume of scholarly literature. So initially, only a scholarly citation, an article was citing an article or a book or vice versa, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Now we see that articles are also shared on social media, in news, policy documents, non-scholarly citations, in blogs, patterns, and we know of article usage. And all of this changes the way we can assess the quality of an article. And so we can ask which article made a bigger impact. Is that one with many citations? Or is that one widely discussed on the social web? One with many downloads? Or discussed on CNN? Now, I don't know the answer to that, and I doubt there is an answer. But slowly we start to realize we have to look at all of these different topics, all of these different metrics, and the combined picture gives some indication of the quality of the article. Now at the bottom you see a little quote from Michael Treusige, who predicted in 2013 that the general social media mechanisms will replace the impact factor. We'll still have to see, but for now that doesn't seem to be the case. So just that we're all on the same page, let's make a little definition here. So now for the rest of the presentation, when I speak about Altmetrics, I mean it's called non-scholarly citations, as for example in policy documents, blogs, Wikipedia, news, Twitter, social media, but also reference managers, Mendeley, sites like YouTube, reviews in Faculty 1000, and PubPeer. Whereas the article level metrics are the usage count, the counter stats, the scholarly citations, and the Altmetrics combined. And it turns out that articles are actually also widely discussed in policy document, and we're only starting to see the beginning of that and the impact of that. So if you put all of that together, we can say, okay, the Altmetrics are maybe the missing piece of the impact puzzle. So on one side we have the usage and the citations, which tell a story about the academic performance of the article. And on the other side, we have the Altmetrics that give you insight in the wider societal impact. And so we can start to answer questions like, are policymakers citing and acting on the research? Is the media discussing research? And is the public and or academia discussing research on social media? Now slowly we also see that Altmetrics are being considered for research evaluation. So long ago, in the days of Diesel, it was fairly straightforward. You didn't have so many researchers yet, and research evaluations were bespoke and performed by peer. And if you did well, you got the Nobel Prize. Life was fairly easy. These days we have many researchers, and we can't solely rely anymore on the peer-by-peer evaluation. So we start to rely on metrics. And there's a couple of external forces driving this change. So for example, on the left side you see a snippet from the UK REP, the research evaluation. And in there they say, for the purpose of the REP, the impact is defined as an effect on the change, the benefit, economy, society, culture, public policy and services, health, environment, or quality of life, all beyond academia. So it's very wide what the impact of your research output is. And we see also this being adopted in the UK, of course, but also in the Netherlands and Australia. And I'm sure by now there might be more countries where this is the case. Also, researchers and editors are starting to drive this forward. So, for example, the San Francisco Declaration of Research Assessment says there's a pressing need to improve the ways in which the output of scientific research is evaluated. Now, if we look at the relation Altmetrics and authors, we see that there's a lot of Altmetrics these days. So this is data from Altmetrics in 2014. So I'm sure by now the numbers have doubled. But then we already had 35,000 online mentions of scholarly articles every day. The majority of those are Twitter. However, through the way Facebook is set up, we know that this is a huge underestimation. We know from the traffic coming, for example, to Springer Links, that Facebook is one of the largest social media drivers of traffic to our platform. If we ask the authors whether they like the Altmetrics, and this is a survey that was done 2 years ago by Wiley, they said that 65% thought that the metrics were useful, and 50% would submit to a paper in a journal that supports Altmetrics. So that's all good, and we started also to use these article level metrics to translate these article level metrics in an attractive message. So rather than focusing on the impact factor of the journal, we started to focus on the top cited, top downloaded, and top shared articles in key journals. So one of the examples, you see a couple of examples of the campaigns we did over the years. And here you see one example, the Neurostars, where we have the top cited, downloaded, and mentioned articles for a certain period, for example, the year 2014. Now, that's all well and good. So journals are well covered and articles, but up until the day that we launched Bookmetrics, there was nothing for books. And so, as an author, you really didn't have any idea what the impact was for the book. There was no recognition for the book from the faculty, university administrators, or funders. And so why would I write one? Now, I've been a publishing editor for 5 years myself, and this was one of the frustrations that I had, that authors would tell me this. And this is also underlined by the research output from the ref. And so you see here that the research output for all of the UK in the year 2014, only a small portion was in books and chapters, only 14% of the total. Whereas if we look at Springer Nature, in 2014, we published more than 10,000 books and 200,000 chapters. So even though there are chapters published, they weren't listed for the research output of the UK. As a publishing editor, I also would like to encourage the authors to write more books and show them the reliable metrics that we have. And I think with the open access movement, and at this day and age, authors actually also expect more from their publisher, and they would like to see these metrics. And so we built Bookmetrics, which pulls together the information about the attention paid to, the use of, and the impact of books. And it turns out books actually benefit hugely from these new ways of looking at attention and impact. So for example, here we have a book. This book was published in 1991, which is 25 years ago. And suddenly, at the beginning of 2050, somebody mentioned this book in a blog. And along came a whole discussion on social media around this book with 50 tweets, 16 Facebook posts, and 3 Google Plus posts. And so subsequently we looked at our archival content, or content published before the year 2000, when there was hardly any social media or online sharing. And so we have 98,000 books published before the year 2000, and 42,000 of them had there were 42,000 mentions, sorry, to these 98,000 books. That's nearly one mention for every 2 books. And furthermore, we realized that the traditional citation databases underestimate the impact of books. So here we see an example of one of our books. This was published in 1979, and you see the number of citations over the year. And actually, we haven't reached the plateau of this book. And so we looked at all the books in the English language catalog that we have, over 100,000 books. And this is all data from Crossref. And we found that we have, on average, 20 citations per book, with a cited half-life of 20 to 30 years. Now that's a huge difference from the article world. So as a reference, I've put here the average citations per article from Thomson Reuters Essential Science Indicators database from 2000 to 2010. And the reason why we took Crossref is that I wanted to go to each and every author that published with Springer and tell them whether or not his book was cited. If we had taken data from either Thomson Reuters or from Scopus, then for the vast majority of our authors, I would have said, maybe your book has been cited, but I don't know because it wasn't indexed. So that's the reason why we went for Crossref. And so the story behind the book doesn't finish when it's published. And the good thing, it's all for free. So what have we done so far? We launched Bookmetrics at the London Book Fair in May of last year. And we have the metrics now displayed on Springer.com and Springer Link, but also, although relatively shortly, now also on Belgrade.com. The backbone of the program is the API, the Bookmetrics API. And that gets data in from the Altmetrics API, from the Onyx feed from Springer Nature, the Springer API downloads, and the metadata to get data from Crossref and Mendeley. And the API powers the individual metrics on the platform pages, but it also powers the front end, and that I'll show you in a minute. Separately, we also have what we call the Bookmetrics Bookshelf, which is an application for our in-house editors and sales teams. And it's been a huge success. We had over 800,000 page views per month to bookmetrics.com. So where do you find it? If you go to one of the pages, you see on the right-hand side a little table here with, if available, citations, mentions, readers, reviews, and downloads. If you click on one of them, you'll go to the dedicated tab on bookmetrics.com. We'll find a summary of the data in the top row, but you can also find the individual chapter data. The citation data will give you the citations per year, and you can click on each of the citing sources. You'll find a little table with how many times a certain book was cited over the years and what were the most popular chapters in a certain book. Then we have the Mendeley data. Now, we call this Mendeley readers, and that means that somebody has a PDF of a chapter or a book in their Mendeley library. The data you see here is a little demographics if they've opted to show their demographics, and you know where the people are that are reading your book. The download data are downloads from Springer Link, from the new Springer Link platform, so starting mid of 2012 onwards. And we upload the download data every month. Then there's the data from Altmetrics on the right side. And if you click on See All Mentions, you see more insights. Now, since the launch, the engagement around book mentions has been growing tremendously. Between August and October of last year, we saw a 25% increase in the number of users. The returning visitors increased, page views went up. The Springer Link traffic to Bookmetrics also increased, and with a very low bounce rate. We also had a lot of happy authors tweeting about their book, mainly about the number of downloads, the milestone of downloads that they reached. We have been nominated twice for an Innovation Award, and so it's all going quite well.
Hi, Martijn. We have a quick question regarding whether you can go over the different metrics that are available in the boxes on your previous slide.
Yes. This one?
Yes.
Yes, so let's start here. So the citation data is data from Crossref. And so here you see whether or not a book is cited and where it's cited, in which year it was cited, and from a certain book, how many, which was the most popular, the most cited chapter. Then we have the mentions, and this is data from Altmetrics, and we use the Altmetrics API for this. And so you can see how many times a certain book or chapter was discussed or mentioned in a blog, or on Twitter, Facebook, Wikipedia, Google+. Then we have the Mendeley readers, what we call the readers. The downloads is the Springer Link downloads. So just to show these are chapter downloads. So every time somebody downloads a chapter, it will add up one. And the last box that I didn't show a picture of is the reviews. So these are reviews that come in via the Springer Nature review unit, and that you can also find on Amazon.com and on Springer.com. Does that answer the question?
Okay, great. And we just had one more quick question regarding, I know you discussed Palgrave. Will Bookmetrics be expanded to include humanities disciplines as well? Or is this already included?
Yes. As we speak, our servers are uploading all the data. So last week we finished actually the last data import from Palgrave. And so we'll have all the Palgrave books covered. They're still updating all the data. It's quite a lot of books, so 30,000 or so. So, and I'll get there also towards the end. We're also now talking to another social science humanities publisher, which is called Brill from the Netherlands, to add their books to the Bookmetrics database as well.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, okay. All right, then onwards. So this is the Bookmetrics bookshelf, and this is the in-house platform where we can look at the performance of books, find the best books, and so on. So for example, here I filtered the total catalog on the year of publication 2014 and discipline neuroscience. And you can easily find the most cited books in this discipline. I can also change here and filter not on citations but on downloads or on online mentions, book reviews, or Mendeley readers. You can download this data and analyze it further. You can also look for the best chapter amongst these disciplines. And here we have an example of a book series that has a lot of book in it. So each of the dots that you see is a value for an individual book. And I've sorted all of these books by the number of downloads. That's the gray line that you see. And the green line is the online mentions and citations. So we can do some very careful analysis on whether or not there's a correlation between any of these metrics, but this is something that has never been done before. Now it seems a little bit there's a minor correlation between the number of online mentions and the number of downloads, but we still have to do some more work on that. You could also measure the quality of your portfolio as a publishing editor. So here you see a picture of my portfolio, actually, of the books that I published. Downloaded the data, plotted them. You can see here which ones are the high flyers and the low flyers within my portfolio. Now we also launched a couple of new features, and the most interesting one, this is my opinion, is the possibility to actually print a report. This is going back to the initial reason why we started Bookmetrics, which was that we want to empower the authors that write books. And so with the print report, they can print out their own personal report of all the data that we have on Bookmetrics. So here you see this report. And so they can either print it out or attach it to their grant evaluation or university assessment and show them that their books actually have an impact. And so, as I mentioned, the story continues. We are now working, the majority of Belgrave is in the database, and we're also talking to Brill to add their books. And there are more publishers that are interested to add their books to Bookmetrics as well. So to close, Bookmetrics is a Springer Nature product, which is built on Altmetrics technology. And that was all I had. I'm happy to do a live demo if there's any questions. Floor is open for questions.
All right, we had a couple of questions, Mark. One was Martijn. One was regarding the cost of Bookmetrics.
Well, it's for free.
Right. So there's no cost associated with accessing or downloading any of the information.
The part where you can download data is at the moment for Springer Nature colleagues. So the bookshelf application is something that we have only available right now for internal use. We are currently exploring the possibility to open this bookshelf application up for our customers, so for the librarians and the researchers in the university.
Okay, great.
But also that will be free of charge.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and okay, so this is currently only available for Springer titles, but will potentially be expanding to include other publishers?
Yes, that is our ambition.
Great. And we have a question here. Let me pull this up. Regarding the sources and databases that the book and chapter citations are pulled from. Can you maybe expand on the different sources and databases where the citations are pulled from?
Yes, so the citation data is coming from Crossref. As I mentioned, we really wanted something that we can say each book and chapter is indexed, and not only 10 or 20% of our entire portfolio, so that's why we went for Crossref. And so that's what you see here. For example, here you can click on each of one of them, and then it will open using the DOI resolver in a new screen. You can see also the build-up of the citations over time, and whether they're direct or indirect links.
Great. And we have another question regarding what you count as online mentions.
Yes, let me find a nice example for you. Well, here we are. Oh, not so much variety, but online mentions are individual tweets of somebody, or Facebook post, or news articles. We just count the number. We don't give it a value as what's done with the Altmetric donut. See whether I can find another one with a little bit more variety. A lot of tweets in Facebook so far.
Okay. All right. So moving on with the questions, we have a question regarding whether the API will be set up so that it can feed data to research information management systems.
Yeah, that's a good question. That is something that we're exploring. Because I understand that that's the nicest way that for a university or from a library point of view that you can actually have the data on your own dashboard. So that is under evaluation right now.
Okay. Is it possible to export the Altmetrics data for a list for a customer's licensed eBooks instead of viewing the data on an individual book basis? So I believe the question is asking, can you pull data on a larger scale as opposed to individual book?
You can pull part of the data on a larger scale. So for internal use and then hopefully also later for external use. So in this case, I can download all the data as a CSV, and the CSV will have data on the number of citations, the number of, it's the rough numbers that you will see. It will not zoom into how many tweets you have and how many Facebook posts or how many news articles. That is something we may want to add later on, but not right now.
All right. For the Altmetric mention to count, it would need to link back specifically to the book on its main platform containing the DOI. So that's a question. Would it need to link back specifically to the book on its main platform containing the DOI?
Yes, that's correct. It's similar to how Altmetrics index the journal articles. So it only counts if there is a mention of a link with a DOI or ISBN. We are looking into a sort of a larger scale search for the combination of author and title, because that's rather a unique combination, but that's not in place yet. So at the moment, you really need to have a link somewhere to the original source.
Okay. Is the citation data from Crossref via an API? If so, which one?
It's our own citation API. So what we do is that we have a copy of the citation data to Springer books and also journals on one of our own servers. And the reason we do that is because we have too many books and journals. And so if we would query the Crossweb API every time, then it will be finished fairly soon. And so that's why we have our own one, and we query for Bookmetrics our own API.
Great. And if participants are interested in accessing Bookmetrics, they can go to the website bookmetrics.com. Is that correct?
Rather not. The best is just to look up any book on Springer.com, SpringerLink, or Palgrave, and you'll find the Bookmetrics there in a little table.
Okay. Is there any way to localize the information provided? A participant's library is interested in the impact of books within their network specifically. Can the scope be restricted to specific academic level, particularly the university level, to see how many students and faculty are downloading e-chapters for that specific restriction level?
I think much of that information is available in the SpringerLink admin panel. So we're probably not going to focus on that unless there's a dying demand for that. What we do want to add relatively soon is the possibility, for example, to look at the university, so the output from an institution. So we're now adding grid identifiers to our entire database, and then you can search by institutional identifier and find all the books that have been published from that university. So that's one possibility, or by country, or by discipline, etc., etc. But not so far zooming in.
Great, great. And there was a question regarding social media, and as you spoke of the major drivers were Facebook and Twitter. How do you define major, and what percent has it changed over the last few years?
Ooh.
Maybe a difficult one.
I do not know the numbers from the top of my head. What I can tell you is from all the traffic that is coming from social media sources, the majority or the largest share is for Facebook and Wikipedia. But how much it is in relation to all the other traffic from Google and from PubMed and all of that, I don't know from the top of my head.
Can you discuss how this tool compares to the book citation tool from Web of Science?
Yes. So the book citation tool of Web of Science is only a very select group of books, and obviously it's only about citation. So we have spoken with Thomson Reuters, and at that time they had 10,000 books from Springer in their database, whereas we have published 200,000 books. So what you see is a very small portion of all the books published.
Okay, we have a question about accessing journal metrics. The participant would like to know if it's possible to view journal metrics in SpringerLink.
We do have journal metrics, but they are on the journal pages of Springer.com and not on SpringerLink. They are slightly different, but we have started this pilot last year, where we wanted to show also more metrics on a journal level, so that you can choose. Because some authors want to submit an article and have it published very quickly, and others are more interested in the impact factor. And so we display there the time to first decision of the editorial board, the impact factor, but also the SNP, the SJR, the Google H index, Google H5, that's it, as well as some social media metrics. But those are all on Springer.com and not on SpringerLink. Something similar to what you see on Book Metrics, we do have on SpringerLink, but it has no, there are circles underneath an article if an article is cited or mentioned in the social web. I hope it answers the questions a little bit.
Okay, is there any plan to develop citation impact by ORCID? By ORCID?
Yes. That's one of the, also because Springer Nature was the first publisher who started working with ORCID in books. And so you can submit your ORCID in your book, and we'll go through the entire book workflow. And once it's published, via the Crossref connection, it will be deposited if you want that in your ORCID. And so we have a growing number of ORCIDs in our database. And at one point it becomes interesting to start working with that and build, let's say, author pages based on book metrics.
And you may have discussed this already, but there was a question, does the tool track book chapters with DOIs?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We do need a DOI for it to work, because all of the data sources that we work with rely on the DOI. So Crossref is using DOIs, obviously. But also Altmetrics and Mendeley rely on DOIs.
All right. And how does this platform differ from what Altmetrics offers?
That's a good question. It differs, of course, but not so much. So what you see here, the page that I just pulled up, this is actually the same as badges for books. So all of this information is in badges in books. So let's say Book Metrics is badges for books plus Crossref plus downloads plus Mendeley data. So there, yeah. I mean, the data that we get from Altmetrics is part of our data feed as well, and we have the same display. So it's very similar, but Book Metrics has more data sources and than badges for books.
All right. Okay, let's see if anyone else has a question here. Feel free to submit any other questions. And I'll see if anything.
This is Mark from ACRL and Choice. Just would encourage folks to submit any questions if they have them, and we'll give them just a couple of seconds to come on through. But otherwise, if folks don't have anything else that you would like to learn about, we can move on.
We have a question about what information you're pulling from Mendeley.
The information from Mendeley is readership by country, so where the people are that have a PDF of this chapter or book in their Mendeley library. If they have disclosed it, as you can see, there's a large portion here at the bottom, unknown, but all of the other have disclosed their information. There's information by discipline, so which are the disciplines that these people work at, and the last one is the professional status, whether apparently this book is very popular amongst librarians. So that's the Mendeley data that we have.
Great.
And should there be any questions later on this afternoon or tomorrow, just drop me a line on the email address that was somewhere.
All right, we have one more. When did you say the metrics would be available for other disciplines? One last question.
Well, this, if that's for books that are on Springer Link, that should be available right now.
And again, participants can go to Springer Link and see metrics now. It is available for academic libraries and librarians to go there and download this information, to view the information on Springer Link. I think there may have been some confusion about whether Bookmetrics is currently available, and they can view the information.
Yes. No, yeah, you can find it on all of the Springer Link pages, as well as belgrade.com, and I think next month on apress.com.
Oh, great.
So that's your way in to the details pages.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, then I wanted to thank everyone for all the great questions. It looks like we're ready to wrap up our time together today, and hope you learned more about the various performance metrics that are available for demonstrating the impact of books, how the Bookmetrics platform provides a comprehensive overview of these metrics, and the valuable role that performance metrics are continuing to play in supporting authors and researchers at academic institutions. I'll turn it back over to Mark now, and again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Martijn whenever you want.
Great. I would like to take this opportunity to give you both a virtual round of applause for spending some time with us today and for sharing some really great information. We greatly appreciate your insights. As a reminder for folks, we have recorded today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from ACRL and Choice that will include instructions for accessing the archived version. Thanks again, everyone, for participating with us today. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope the rest of your day is great.
Thank you.